So we've looked at Somerset and Shropshire from the farming perspective. We're now going to move on to the Orkney. I think from the slides and chats we've had so far, we can see it's quite simple to deploy networks and stuff in this rural environment. Nice and flat, really. No problems there, was there? Anyway, so I'll ask the panel to introduce themselves and how they've played into the deployment in the Orkneys and what their particular contribution was.
Okay, so I'm Malcolm Brew, and I work at Strathclyde University. I think it was over 10 years ago we started to look at what to do with shared spectrum of the gaps, or of managing TV white space, and through that we've come to where we are today, and we're firm believers. We're big advocates in sharing spectrum, and particularly with communities, allowing communities access to spectrum and self-build networks. And we've been doing it in Africa. We've been doing it so that's us.
I'm Stephen Spears. I'm from Cisco Systems. I'm part of the Customer Experience or Professional Services organisation, along with our Chief Architect Malik up there. I somehow managed to get Cisco into this, which I'm still astounded at when I look at the room, actually. So that's me.
Thanks, Tim.
I'm Greg Whitten from CloudNet. We're the local guys on the ground up in Orkney doing the installs. We've been doing wireless and radio installs for about 20 years now, so it's been quite a challenge for us, even with this project. So.
I'm Andrew Murphy from the BBC's Research and Development Department, and we've been working on looking at how 4G and 5G technologies might evolve to give people radio over broadcast in future.
I'm Steve Hunt. I worked with the Strathclyde team to really think about how we were shaping up this new thinking, breaking the edge paradigm. I used my experience working both for DCMS in the old days and working more closely on local economic partnerships in rural areas across Scotland.
Thanks very much. So I'd like to dig into, you've all got different approaches, different lenses onto the particular problem in the Orkneys. I'd like to dig into some of the challenges that you found whilst building and deploying this environment.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, Steve.
I'll jump in. Let me talk about two challenges and where the opportunity came from. I've got to say, I went to Orkney with Greg, and he took me around, and we stood in the Eye of Cara, and underneath my feet there was, each pair of fibres has got, 57 gigabits a second or something like that, and across the water there's a little village that's got a lot of knot spots in it, very poor coverage, and with a actually relatively low cost parallel wireless radio, we've connected that village to mobile internet for the first time ever, right onto a Cisco 5G packet core. So, challenge, it never happened, the ecosystem brought it together. We had some real challenges getting the networking working, just connecting across the country. It's one thing having it working in a local area, then you extend it 1,000 kilometres across the UK, and some of the challenges in getting that actually working, and the problems on sections of the link and so on, and the way the team pulled together across 7 or 8 partners, including Data Vita, Cisco, CloudNet, Parallel Wireless, was just absolutely amazing.
I think one of the challenges as well is actually the art of translation. Des and Bob were talking about it earlier in terms of new thinking. I mean, we've got the technical opportunity, we've got the diversity of use cases, and it's actually pulling all of that together in a meaningful way that leads to a scale-up longer term.
I think there's another thing that's, you say a challenge, but it's actually sometimes a challenge, an opportunity is presented. So, and the opportunity is actually with Greg. Greg has actually built this network out in Orkney. So actually the solution's actually on Orkney. It's a local, Greg and the islanders, they know where they want the coverage, and so the challenge is actually, there are some regulatory ones which we're kind of looking at and exploring, but it's actually community building out these networks themselves. So the challenge is actually enabling and helping people build their own networks.
That's an interesting point, Malcolm. Greg, how much did the community really contribute and get involved?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
I think when you go to somebody and say you want to do some 5G connectivity, they just say, what can we do? How can we do it? Can we help? So they're very, very more inviting, and there's no issues about money. There's no talking about, what's in it for me. It's, oh, great, can we get some decent connectivity, what's it going to give us? So it is very positive in terms of that for what we did in Orkney.
That's really interesting because you can have a lot of conversations with people in rural environments and talk about 5G, and they say, well, great, but I haven't got 2G, 3G or 4G yet, why are you going to give me 5G? And it's really interesting to hear how that community didn't have that same conversation. They just said, give us some good connectivity, we can do a lot with it. Mm-hmm. Great. Andrew?
Yeah, I think you found that with Superfast as well. Actually, the uptake of Superfast was phenomenal because it was fresh and it was complete transformation.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to underestimate the power of having decent connectivity in these rural environments and what a game changer it really is. If you're used to it and you run your life in an urban environment where you've got good connectivity, take it for granted. If you haven't got it, it does actually change a lot of things. Andrew, I'd like to come to you, if I may. From a BBC perspective, why did you want to get involved and what's it taught you?
Oh, it's taught us an awful lot. So, I mean, from a technical perspective, it's taught us a lot about how these technologies work and what we might need to do to launch services over them if we wanted to do that in the future. I think we've been struck, I mean, Greg was talking about the community, just how well received the trial has been. So we've done a public trial, we've given trialists handsets, they've listened to the radio for us, they've used the mobile internet, and it's just been well received in every sense. The technology has worked really well, so the reception's been really good. But we've also done a lot of market research, and the respondents have just been so positive. I mean, the key message has been, please don't switch this off, because this is better than the fixed connectivity that we have at the moment. It enables us to do a lot more than we could do in the past.
And I'll ask kind of the same question to the panel that I asked on the previous panel. What lessons have you learned from the trial, and how are you going to apply that to future opportunities and taking connectivity in rural environments forward, or from the BBC perspective, doing things differently? Anyone can answer.
I think the big lesson is it can be done, actually. I mean, you gave us a real challenge there in 1 year to create such a palette of use cases. And the foundation was there. I must admit, at times I'm not too sure it was going to happen, but I guess the real thing about it was that we developed a scientific approach. I mean, there were certain things about hypotheses I think we could do it. I can remember one day we were actually looking at the van, the connectivity of Doon Gap, and really scratching our heads about what could be done to achieve it in that place. And we did. So I think that can-do attitude as well is part of the real success of it. And it's how I think someone said it earlier about community, I think how we actually then create that community of capability locally.
Fantastic. Stephen, what would you do different from a Cisco perspective?
What would you do different? One thing I'd like to highlight first is what I think the major success of the project has been, and it's the importance of an ecosystem in making 5G happen. And we've had a fantastic ecosystem, 29 key partners, probably another 6 or 7 associate partners on top of that. And it's a key lesson for 5G that we'll bring out later on. We couldn't have done it without the ecosystem. What would you have done different? I think rural is rural. You've got to be there. And some of the things when you go there and you see it, Greg and I have talked about this, it just opens your eyes about some of the challenges. And I think there's a few lessons learned that if we'd been there and seen it, we would have maybe got a couple of things done a little bit faster.
Okay, so you've learned a lot from it. Been through some tough times, probably tears at some points, any tantrums. But you're clearly going to have some stories of things you're very proud of as a result of doing this. Can you share that with us from the panel?
Well, for me, it's the fact that I think we've bucked the trend. I think we've delivered something that people, and no MNOs are involved in apart from, the Shifa, Faroese Telecom guys. We've delivered something that people, I think, didn't think we could do. And it's significant for us.
Yeah, for me, one of the couple of light bulb moments, looking at Bury Village, connecting that, and then Greg and I were up the top of this hill, and across the water was this little island with a lighthouse on it. And you'll see Pure Li-Fi and University of Edinburgh are doing internet delivery without spectrum through a solar panel. And I just thought, I had never really paid much attention to some of these use cases. I was more focused on the kind of tech-heavy, autonomous tractors, low latency. But when you see some of the great ideas that are innovating on top, it's just fantastic. That, for me, was a light bulb.
And I think something else on the lines of what Stephen said, if you like, the Nike effect, you just do it, you can do it. But we actually had a lot of people, and this is kind of true in life, lots of naysayers, oh, you won't get the spectrum, you won't get the licenses, you're not going to be able to do that. A community, they can't. 5G, that's bleeding edge. You can't roll that out in a community. So actually, I think you have to have ambition. You don't. If people say you can't do it, that makes me wonder, yeah, well, of course we can. And actually, we've built it, again, in a very appropriate way, very cost-effective. It's maintained locally. It's kind of built locally. So don't listen to everything you might hear, even from some senior government folks that say, yeah.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you, okay. So I think it's good. It's a challenge. These are great challenges, and take them on. Don't be frightened to kind of break the mold. And I think that's definitely some of the things that in the next 6 months over our extension, we're going to definitely prove out that we can deliver more gigabytes per end user over a square mile than we can break these not spots up. Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. Because we're overrunning slightly, I've been told I've got to wind it up. So I'd just like to ask very quickly, any final thoughts or messages you'd like to give to the audience here who are sitting there contemplating all this great stuff that you've done and thinking about their own use cases and how they're going to go and deploy this in their own environments?
I think working with the community is particularly important, and having that balance of partners in the 5G RuralFirst consortium, the fact that people like Greg and CloudNet were involved in the consortium, Orkney Islands Council, people who really know the local area and the people and the places that can benefit most from this technology. You know, we relied on their guidance to steer aspects of the project.
And I think there's a difference, there's a subtle difference, is that every place is different, but what we've got and achieved in this project is a complete foundation of opportunity. And I think working collectively across the UK within 5G UK, understanding different places, and I probably would challenge the audience to just, this is probably speaking out of turn under 5G RuralFirst, but there are inner city areas with exactly the same sorts of island problems of connectivity. And it's about getting that skill and that equipment down to a modular level when we can actually start to drive the business cases properly.
Great. And as we heard from Mansour as well, his fourth item was community, and that's come out loud and clear, I think, this afternoon about involving the community. So just like to say thank you very much for your contribution and your great thoughts and all the hard work you've done on the programme. And if anybody wants to have a further conversation during the demos later, these guys will be around so you can pick their brains. Thank you very much.
Thank you.